This is Trash Talk with your host, Garrett the Trash Man.
What is up, everybody? You're listening to Trash Talk, and this is your host, Garrett the Trash Man. Now, John, the Batman Ballard, the co-host, is not here right now because he is off getting his learning on at Ontacore. So that lucky dog is going to have a productive next 3 days. It's a great time. It's a great course. If you're interested in elevating your life, check out Ontacore. That's just a free ad read for them because, man, they've made a impact and difference in my life. So I would recommend them to anyone. Now, I am not going to rant because I'm here alone, and you know, we came off the holiday weekend, and I'm like, Tyler, I don't know what to podcast about. So he just threw a topic at me, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let's do this. And so I'm just going to dive into it. So thank you, Larson Waste, for sponsoring this podcast. Big things are always happening at Larson Waste. We're always taking care of our customers. If you're not a customer, you are missing out. If you're not following us on our social media, you're missing out on the creative brilliance that Tyler puts out on a day-to-day basis. So get on there and just check it out, what Larson Waste is doing. So appreciate you, Larson Waste, and for bringing us this podcast. Now, I'm going, Tyler, what the heck am I going to talk about today? I didn't prep for this like I ought to. Please help me. And he's like, talk about self-respect. I'm like, all right, I got somewhere to go with that. And I want to share an experience I had that I've talked a little bit about, but it really dials into this self-respect thing. It's really had an impact on the day-to-day living of how I make decisions in my life, because I think it really ties in with another hot topic that everyone always wants to talk about. There's a million things out there, and it's balance in life. And I think that balance in life idea is kind of a misnomer. So here's what I have to say about here's the story. So I was a part of a leadership group. We spent a year together on a weekly basis, discussing what's going on in our lives, in our businesses. We had a couple coaches there that would help us through these situations. We would use each other as the material. Maybe one week I would show up with a business dilemma, and we would all look at it from certain perspectives. The coach would coach us through it, see things, and you could do the work to put yourself in that situation or see how you've got similar situations in your life. Very, very useful group with some incredible people that I'll be lifelong friends with now. And it could be business, it could be personal. Life just isn't as sectioned off as things flow into each other. So you are who you are, and we were focused on being better. So in any situation we could handle, whether it was personal, business, or whatever. So we spent this year together, and once a quarter we met in person. And this last quarter was near the end of the year. And so we started talking about 2020. All right, what's our commitments for 2020? And we spent a couple hours in a break-off session looking at what are we truly committed to. And what we did is we took a lot of time dissecting and really looking at what commitment means. Because commitment is a word that's thrown around. And in the way I hold it, I think a lot of time is thrown around much too loosely. The simple definition that I hold of commitment is doing whatever's necessary. And if that's the case, it's not something that's willy-nilly come and go. Oh, I just decided I didn't want to do it. That doesn't mean you don't have things that you would like to do or you intend to do or you're testing. That's all fine and dandy, but that's not commitment. So in reality, as we live our lives, there's really only, I would say, 5 to 10 things that a human being could manage being truly committed to in life at a given moment, because the nature of what commitment is, there's just not enough to go around if you're truly committed to things. And what I realized is, being committed, like I was committed to living a committed life. In whatever I decide is I'm going to be committed to, I want to live committed. I don't want to be floating around just wondering, waiting for what's happening next, even if what I'm committed to is discovering what I want to commit my life to. I want to want to always live in a committed way. And so anyway, we create a hierarchy of our commitments. And I want to kind of point to the importance of that hierarchy of commitments, because there's ample opportunity for commitments to compete in life. Meaning, if I'm committed to building a business and I'm also committed to my family, there's a high likelihood that there's times that those two commitments are going to be competing. Both require certain things to achieve what I'm committed to, and there's only a certain amount of hours in the day. And so there's the competing commitments that always come up, and the hierarchy of these competing of these things that you're committed to will serve to inform you of how to make decisions and run yourself. And as we worked through this and looked at it and created this hierarchy, something that was interesting to me as I was going through this process is I recognized that at the top of the hierarchy, above anything else, was myself. And that was something that I had a preconceived notion or listening that I ought not be committed to myself above all things, that was selfish or somehow morally wrong, that I should put others before me. But as I looked at commitment and how I held it and what it meant to me, I realized that without me, there's nothing else in my life. So why would I not be committed to me first? And I had heard and read people talk about this, like, oh, you got to take care of yourself first so you can bring yourself to these other things. But it hadn't really clicked till I was taking the time to build out this hierarchy. And it made me realize that, yeah, if I'm like, what does it look like to be committed to myself? Well, like physically, it's important to me that I've got a healthy body that has energy to do the things that I feel good in, that I feel confident in, that I'm happy with. And so that was important. Mentally, I need to take care of myself. I need to continue learning. I need my mind to be sharp. I'm committed to spiritually being in alignment with what aligns with me spiritually. And as I looked at all this, it was like, yeah, without me, none of these other things can happen. So, you could call it putting yourself first or whatever you want, but what I realized is if I didn't handle myself, there was no way I could handle the other things I was committed to, meaning my wife and our relationship. How could I be in a relationship that was fulfilling, meaningful, that helped us both grow if I didn't have myself handled? My business, how could I lead a business if I didn't have myself handled, if I wasn't good? And so as I realized that, I realized the importance of that. And what that looks like in day-to-day living is when the competing commitments come up, there's ample opportunity to skip a workout because I'm busy and there's stuff to be done in the business, or ample opportunity to skip meals or eat crappy, or to compromise my integrity for the business and be out of alignment spiritually. But what I realized is that if I put myself first and recognize my hierarchy of commitments, this balancing of life became really simple, because I could just look back at my hierarchy, and the first commitments are what get handled first. And so I'd look at that, I would handle those things first. And what I've experienced this past year is, with that clarity, there's an abundance of time to handle everything. And it's the lack of clarity that causes confusion and doubt and fear that there's not enough time to handle everything that I'm committed to. So this is a shorter podcast because I don't love these ones alone. I'd much rather be having a conversation, but I thought I'd just share that with you guys. It was a great topic that Tyler brought up, and maybe when we do have a couple other people here on the podcast, we can explore it a little bit more and have a deeper conversation. But that was just my experience with taking care of myself and putting myself first. And I just had such a realization that it wasn't selfish, it wasn't wrong. It didn't mean that I didn't care for others, that I didn't lift others up, it meant that I was able to do it more often, and that it brought more abundance into my life. So appreciate you guys listening. Tune in Friday for the Fire Friday. Share the podcast with your friends. Hit me up on Facebook or Instagram, Garrett the Trash Man. Peace.